Good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. And today we are starting book 2 of the Spirit's book. As we have discussed many times, the Spirit's book is divided in 4 books. The first one, the creation, book 1, creation, book 2, the Spirit world, book 3, moral laws, and book 4, hopes and consolations. So we are starting today book 2, which deals with the spirit world. The spiritual world, this book is the largest. It comprises of 11 chapters, where we are going to deal first with the spirits, and then what happens to the spirits, the incarnation, the discarnation, their lives in the spiritual world, multiple lives, what happens during our physical life, during the emancipation of the soul, the intervention of the spirits in the physical world, the spirits' occupations in the spiritual world and their missions, and finally, the 3 kingdoms here on earth. So we start with chapter 1, which is spirits, okay, that we're going to address the origin and nature of spirits, normal primitive world, form and ubiquity of spirits, perispirit, different orders of spirits, spirit hierarchy, progress of spirits and angels and demons, okay? So we start on question 76. Philip, please.
How can spirits be defined? Spirits may be defined as intelligent beings of the creation. They populate the universe outside the material world. Note, the word spirit is employed here to designate extracorporeal beings and not the universal intelligent element.
Okay, so what Kardec is telling us here is that spirits are defined the intelligent beings of the creation. We know that we have God, the intelligent principle, and the universal fluid or material principle. And the spirits are the intelligent beings of the creation. And here Kardec says that the word spirit is being employed to designate extracorporeal beings, which means beings that are not incarnated, that are not in the physical world, and not the universal intelligent element. And then one thing also that's not here, but we can pay attention during the book is whenever the word is in capital letters, it's the spirits as individual spirits. Whenever it's in the low caps, we can use it in more generic terms, okay? But sometimes this you see in the questions all the word spirits are in lowercase, so and then in the answers in capital letters, so it can get confusing. But it's not that important. But normally with capital letters, we talk about spirits as individualities and outside the physical world. Remember, when we talk about incarnated spirits, we call them spiritism, we call them souls, according to Kardec's instructions. But again, these are definitions of spiritism. You are going to find different definitions of spirits and of souls outside spiritism, okay? All right, 77.
Are spirits distinct from the divinity, or are they portions of the divinity called sons or children of God for that reason? Good gracious. Spirits are the work of God, just like a machine is the work of the person who made it. The machine is the product of the person's work, but not the person. When human beings have created something useful, they call it their child or creation. Well then, the same applies to us in relation to God. We are God's children because we are the product of divine work.
It's interesting that the question here is, are we part of the divinity? So we are pieces of God that were let live by ourselves, or I don't know exactly how to define it, or are we created by the Creator? And so we are distinct from divinity. And the spirits get very, they start with good gracious, right? And I find it very interesting that recently I came across a lot of doctrines and philosophies that think that we are part of God, that we are, that we choose, or God chooses, because I don't know how to explain something that I don't agree. I cannot, it's difficult to explain, right? But either we or God chooses to divide itself into parts that are the individual spirits that have the experience outside of the divinity. And then my question to this theories is, how come we get out of the perfection to become imperfect? And then we go back to perfection. What reason? It doesn't make any sense to me. But again, they couldn't explain. That what I read also didn't explain. It just says that and doesn't prove. And I think that Spiritism, one thing that Spiritism is very good at, it's clear explanations, right? So the Spirits tells here, the machine is the product of the person's work, but not the person. The violin was created by someone that constructs the violin, but it is not the builder. The musician is the one that plays the violin, produces the music, but the musician is not the violin, right? So for me, it's clear, but it's incredible how much I found recently of these theories and philosophies and doctrines that think that we are parts of the creation. It's called pantheism, right? That are part of the creation and that separate from the creation to have the experience in the physical life and then go back to the creation. But again, there are some that believe that we go through the evolutionary process, not that in one incarnation we come and then we go back to the creation. We continue in the process of reincarnation until we reach a level of being able to be reunited with the divinity and become a part of the divinity again, which again, it doesn't make sense. But just a point here that according to Spiritism, we are God's creation. The spirits are created by God, and we're going to go. We have a lot more questions about that, but I just wanted to open a parenthesis here to say that you'll find, if you start searching for different beliefs and doctrines, you will find some that really believe that we are all part of God, that for some reason separated from God and are living this imperfect life without any sense.
Yeah, one of the answers to your question, Mother, I agree, of course, is that the matter is corruptive. So the flesh corrupts the spirit. So the spirit, when it came out from God, was pure, but in associate with the flesh corrupts and becomes a sinner because the body corrupts the spirit. It's
again
totally ridiculous in my opinion, but that is one the explanation that they give.
But my logical argument there would be how, if something is perfect, how it can become imperfect.
How can it be corrupted?
Yes, exactly. Because if it can be corrupted, it was not perfect in the first place, right? Because the law is of progress. And this is not progress. This is,
And then there comes the theories against sex. The sex is, this is a bad thing. And all those things you'll see in the flesh is actually the matter corrupting the spirit.
anyway, it's not, Spiritism doesn't tell us that. That tells us something completely different. So let's stick with Spiritism and continue to study what the Spirits tells us that, again, makes sense and it's logic. Okay, 78.
Do spirits have a beginning or birth, or have they existed for all eternity like God? If spirits did not have a beginning, they would be equal to God, but they are God's creation and subject to divine will. It is indisputable that God is eternal, but we know nothing in regard to when and how we were created. In this sense, we have had no beginning since God is eternal. The Creator must have unceasingly created. As to when and how each of us was made, I will repeat, no one knows. This is a mystery.
Yes. Again, if we are created, talking about us as individual spirits, okay, because this question we have to be very careful because there is something in the middle that can be a little bit confusing. We individual spirits, we are immortal. We will never cease to exist, but we were created. We had a beginning. But since God is eternal, God has been creating spirits all the time. That's what the Spirit says here. In the sense, we, the community, not we individually, have had no beginning since God is eternal. Because if we draw a line where spirits started to be created, then, well, what was God doing before? Right? So if God is eternal, the creation of spirits is eternal also. But individually, we were created at some point. Took me some time to get the sense of this, what they meant here, but that's the idea here, that spirits were created, were being created at all times. So the spirits had no beginning. The spirits in the general sense had no beginning because the Creator unceasingly creates, right, as they say here. But we individual spirits, we had a beginning. When was this beginning? The spirits tell us, no one knows, it is a mystery. We know how we start, right? We start as a spiritual principle. So again, this is me here. I believe as we become a perfect spirit, we can trace our beginning as a primitive spirit, our first incarnation. I think we can get there. But before that, I think it gets a little more complex. But that's my opinion.
I agree. I think it's totally possible. My question is, would you care? If we're so busy receiving commands directed from God to execute it, they're going to be looked forward and not backwards.
Yeah,
That's what I imagine.
I agree. I think that it makes sense that when we have the ability to learn, we will no longer be interested in learning, right? Possible, because in the end, you learn how the process works, and it doesn't. You don't need to apply to yourself. You see how the process works for the creation of a spirit in their evolutionary path, right?
Yeah, and even the idea of self, I imagine being a perfect spirit, the idea of self becomes so loose that you really don't care about you as much anymore.
Yeah. Again, supposition of perfect spirits, right? We don't have any We have so just what the Spirit tells us here. Okay.
'79. Since there are two general elements in the universe, the intelligent element and the material element, is it correct to say that spirits are formed from the intelligent element as inert bodies are informed from the material element? Obviously, spirits are the individualizations of the intelligent principle, as bodies are the individualizations of the material principle. It is the time and mode of this formation that are known to us.
Okay. Kardec is a scholar. It's always very interesting to look at how Kardec poses the question and how he addresses everything. Because if you look at this question, we studied this in the first in book 1, right? The universal fluid, the intelligent principle. So you can think of the question by Kardec as being a question that didn't need to be asked, right? Kind of redundant. And then you see the answer from the spirits, and that's something so clear, right, that we didn't have before. Spirits are the individualizations of the intelligent principle, as bodies are the individualizations of the material principle. We didn't have it before so clear and so direct. So again, Kardec being very helpful to us in building our concepts and strengthening our knowledge. Okay. Again, intelligent element, intelligent principle, material element, universal fluid. That's the two separate creations of God, that one forms the spirits and the other forms everything else that is not intelligent, meaning all matter, including our physical body, our spiritual body, our thoughts, energy, all sorts of non-intelligent things. Okay.
It's interesting that on 76, Kardec asks how spirits can be defined. The spirit gives an answer, right? Spirits can be defined as intelligent beings of the creation. And then on 75, it says, spirits are the individualization of the intelligent principle. Personally, I found the definition of spirit as being individualization of the intelligent principle much better than the answer that he gave in 76.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. This answer is clear, right?
Yeah.
It's very well defined. If you had any doubts on where the spirits come from or where matter comes from, this gives you the direct answer.
Yeah, so if somebody asks me how can spirits be defined, I'd rather say spirits are the individualization of intelligent principle. To me, it's much more, like I said, clear and objective.
Clear, yeah, clear and objective. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Number 80. Is the creation of spirits continuous, or did it only take place at the beginning of time? It is continuous, as God has never ceased to create.
Again, an important question that Kardec asks the spirits, right? Because we are discussing the creation and the spirits and the creation. So if God creates all the time, so the creation of spirits is continuous. And if the spirits were only, if it had only take place at the beginning of time, for us, right? That compared to Jesus, that's already a perfect spirit for 4 billion years. And we are still here struggling to evolve, right? So again, we are probably created much later than Jesus, but because again, we don't know how we started, when we started, but the creation happens all the time. So God is creating spirits as we speak here. How many? The universe is expanding and infinite and expanding. So you can imagine the number of spirits being created is also infinite and expanding. And I don't think we can grasp the magnitude of this notion, right? Because it's beyond our capacity of wrapping our head around it. At least mine. Yes, Danny.
I'm going to ask a crazy question.
Okay.
Why?
Why? Why?
Yeah, why the creation never stops? Like, why is everything expanding infinitely? That's the same way you're saying I can also wrap my head around it. So why? I don't know why.
What I can tell you is ask God. I don't know how to answer better than ask God, because we don't have the answer for that. I can answer, why not?
So why not?
Yeah.
The universe is still expanding,
Yes.
so we are still expanding,
Yeah. So, but the question is why?
because so.
Yeah, because like children like to answer, because.
Number 81.
Yes.
Are spirits formed spontaneously, or do they proceed from one another? God creates them as all other creatures were created by divine will. We repeat that their origin is a mystery.
So what Kardec is basically asking is, do spirits create other spirits? And the answer is that God creates them all. The origin is a mystery, but God creates also. Spirits do not create spirits. That's what they are telling us here. We incarnates, we create children, right? We procreate and have children. But there is no procreation in the spiritual world of two spirits procreating and creating another spirit, or as individual spirit creating another spirit. God creates the spirits, not other spirits create spirits. Okay.
Number 82. Is it accurate to say that spirits are immaterial? How could something for which no terms of comparison exist and that your language is unable to express be defined? Can someone born blind define light? Immaterial is not the right word. Perhaps incorporeal would be more accurate for a spirit, since it is a creation. It must be something real. The spirit is quintessentialized matter existing in a state that has no equivalent within your scope of comprehension, and it is so ethereal that it transcends your senses. We say that spirits are immaterial because their existence differs from everything that we know as matter. A nation of blind people has no way of expressing light and its effects. For someone who is blind, the only methods of perception are sound, smell, taste, and touch. He does not understand the ideas that would be perceived by a sense that he lacks. Accordingly, with respect to the essence of superhuman beings, we are truly blind. We can only define them by comparisons that are imperfect or the product of our imagination.
Okay, first note here, superhuman here. I went to the original in French, I went to the Portuguese, and because superhuman here may make people think of Superman or something like that. Superhuman is beyond human, right? Outside human. That's what they meant here in the original in French, but the word is that, it's superhuman. It's in Portuguese, it's in French, it's the same. But what they meant here is not a human with superpowers. It's beyond human. Okay. What the spirits are telling us here, Kardec asks if we can say their spirits are immaterial. Spirits are outside the universal fluid, so they are not matter. So that's the word that he chose to use, and the spirits answer that how can they explain something that we don't have words? And then they ask, can someone born blind define light? And it's funny because yesterday I was watching a TV movie, and there was a blind person, and the other person comes to him and says, hey, I like your shirt. It's a bright red. And then he said, I've been blind since I was born. I have no idea what red means. Right? How can you explain something that a person has no idea? So the spirits are telling us we are blind to the capacity of understanding what are spirits. So they say quintessentialized matter existing in a state that has no equivalent with your scope of comprehension. And actually, I think that's the best they can explain to us. That I say it's so ethereal that transcends your senses. Again, we're talking about the spirit here, not the perispirit. We know that the spirit is always associated with the perispirit, always has at least a spiritual body. But the spirit, it's not the spiritual body. It's not the physical body. It's something that, as they say here, we don't have the capacity of understanding. And then Kardec expands on it, that he says that when we say they're immaterial, the essence differs from everything that we know as matter. And it does, but we don't have words to explain. So we can only define it by comparisons that are imperfect or the product of our imagination. When we talk about doing analogies here, right? Every time I remember Julio always saying, when talk about analogy, it's not the same thing. It's a comparison. It's not when we say an analogy, it's not representing what we are saying. It's a comparison. So that's the best that we can have here in the definition that the spirits are giving to us about what are spirits in essence, what they are. Okay.
That's a problem. Because I can only make this answer if they use quintessential of matter as an analogy. Because if you define it that all matter divide, everything that is material defined from the cosmic fluid, and the spirit does not come from the cosmic fluid, it comes from the intelligent principle. So this calling it quintessential matter creates a problem. The word matter that creates a problem. Unless we take that as an analogy, because you have no other means to call it anything else, and you're going to call it quintessential matter.
I believe so, right? Because the continuation is state that has no equivalent with your scope of comprehension. So it's beyond what we know as matter, right? But we don't have words. So they are using quintessentialized matter.
It will be a matter that does not derive from the cosmic fluid.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
Number 83. Do spirits have an end? We understand that their source is eternal, but we want to know whether their individual existence has a fixed term, and if after a given period of time, the element from which they are formed is redistributed, does it return to the mass from which they were produced, as is the fate of material bodies? It is difficult to understand the concept that something that has had a beginning does not have an end. As humans have limited intelligence, there are many things that you do not understand. Regardless, This does not constitute sufficient grounds for rejection. Children do not understand all that is understood by their parents, nor does an uneducated person understand all that is understood by an educated one. The existence of spirits has no end, and that is all that we can reveal at this time.
And it's interesting because there are three questions on this question, three parts of the question, right? And the spirits answer the last one. Because the last one answers all the others, right? They say that because Kardec says that it's difficult to understand a concept that something that has a beginning doesn't have an end. So how does it not have an end? Everything that we know has a beginning and an end according to our limited knowledge and understanding, right? How can we understand something that does not have an end? And then the spirits tells us, well, children do not understand all that is understood by their parents. So eventually we will understand that. They say the existence of spirits has no end, and that's all that we can reveal. Meaning, we continue evolving until we become perfected spirits. And even then, we continue evolving, right? Because the law is of progress. So if the law is of progress, we continue progressing even after we become perfected spirits. I like the comparison that we are getting closer and closer to God without never, ever becoming one with God, right? The distance between us and God keeps becoming smaller and smaller, but they never touch. But again, how far can we go with that? We can't, right? It's hard. So we have to take it as the Spirit tells us. It doesn't have an end. And if we can't accept that, it becomes difficult for us to understand the concept. So we just have to accept some things that are beyond our capacity of understanding at the moment. Because everything that we study and we try to learn, even if we cannot understand right now, we put aside and wait until we have the ability or capacity to learn, and that eventually will come. Okay.
Normal primitive world, number 84. Do spirits make up a world that is separate from what we see? Yes, the world of spirits or incorporeal intelligences.
Okay, so what Kardec is asking here is, we live in the physical world. Do the spirits that live outside the physical world make up a world that is separate from what we see? And the spirits say, yes, the world of spirits. They live in the spiritual world. The spiritual world, again, here is the very beginning of the concepts of spiritual world. Nowadays, with all the books by André Luiz and all the studies that we have a much deeper understanding of the world of spirits. But at that time, we have to remember, this is question 84, Kardec is starting, he's asking, where are the spirits, right? We know spirits exist. We know because they are communicating with us. But where are they? Where do they stay while they are not communicating with us? Right? They are waiting for us to call and communicate. And what happened to all the others, the billions of others, right? So the answer from the spirits here is logic. There is a world of spirits or non-corporeal or incorporeal intelligence outside what we know, separate from what we know as the earth or the physical world. Okay.
Normal primitive world, number 84.
All right, that you read already, 85 now.
Sorry. Which of the two, the spirit world or the physical one, is the principal one in the order of things? The spirit world. It is pre-existent to and survives everything else.
Very simple question and answer, but very important here, right? Because we live in this physical world, we live on Earth, and we have to understand that the spiritual world is pre-existence to the physical world and survives everything else. Meaning, the physical worlds have a beginning and have an end, but the spiritual world continues all the time. That's what the spirits are telling us here. Pre-existence and survives everything else. So even if the physical world ceases to exist, the spiritual world will continue to exist. And that's actually the next question that Kardec is going to ask the spirits.
Number 86. Could the physical world cease to exist or never have existed at all without affecting the essence of the spirit world? Yes, they are independent of one another, and yet their correlation is continuous, for they ceaselessly react upon each other.
So here, we have to divide between the theory, supposition, and the reality, right? So what Kardec is asking in the theory, can in theory the physical world cease to exist or never existed at all, and the spiritual world will continue to exist and have existed? And the spirits first, they tells us, yes, they are independent of one another. So the spiritual world is not dependent on the physical world. And the physical world, in a certain way, is independent from the spiritual world, but not fully, because we are eternal spirits incarnated here. But what the spirits are telling here further is their correlation is continuous, for they ceaselessly react upon each other. So all the time, they existed all the time and will continue to exist all the time. That's the conclusion we get from the answers from the spirits. So in theory, the spiritual world can exist independent of the physical world. In practical terms, the physical worlds exist and will continue to exist. The universe is expanding. So if we accept the idea that the universe is expanding, what comprises the universe? Comprises of galaxies and suns and planets and all these things. So if they are expanding, they continue creating, existing more and more of those. And we know, according to our science, that everything in the universe, the suns have an end, and then creates the dark matter, and then the explosion creates new suns, new worlds, and so on and so forth. So it continues renewing itself according to the divine laws. Okay.
Number 87. Do spirits live in a specific restricted region in space? Spirits are everywhere, and they populate infinite space in infinite numbers. Imperceptible to humans, they are always beside you, observing and acting upon you, as they are one of the powers of nature and the instruments employed by God to accomplish God's designs. All spirits do not go everywhere, and there are regions that are restricted to those who are less advanced.
Again, we see the question and answer here, and for us that have been studying spiritism for a long time, it seems obvious. But for the time that it was brought, it's the first time that Kardec brings the idea that spirits are around us all the time, right? There is no, before the 87, of course, in the introduction, you'll find some ideas, but in terms of questions and answers, it's the first time that Kardec brings the idea that spirits are all around us, besides you, observing and acting upon us. And they populate the infinite space in infinite number, are everywhere. Now, eventually we will learn that all planets and all celestial bodies are inhabited by spirits, even the sun and the stars. Not all of them by incarnated spirits. That's the difference. There are some places in the universe that serve as a residence, temporary residence for discarnate spirits, that there are no incarnate spirits living there. There are some discussions about in books by André Luiz and by Emmanuel and Chico Xavier, what planets are more advanced, more evolved, and less evolved in the solar system, with different definitions of it. We're not going to get there, but there are reports of spirits in Jupiter, in Mars, in Mercury. So, Mercury. We'll find so by the books of André Luiz, we see that all these planets are inhabited by spirits. And again, we are not going to go here in what form these spirits have, because they adapt to each planet. So we cannot imagine that we're going to find spirits, human form-like spirits, in different planets, because spirits take the elements from the planets to form both the perispirit and their physical body. But this is advancing a lot on what Kardec and the spirits are telling us here, which is that spirits are everywhere. They populate the space in infinite number, and they are all around us. Now, one thing that he tells us here, they do not go everywhere. And we know by the books of André Luiz that spirits can go to all levels below the level they are and their moral advancement, right? So they can be taken in special occasions to more elevated planes of existence for a temporary visit, but then they'll go back to their levels of evolutionary spaces. So, of course, when we read Nosso Lar, André Luiz talks to his mother that lives in a more elevated plane of existence. And she comes to visit him. She can go to the lower zones, but André Luiz cannot go by himself to visit his mother. He can be taken there if he deserves. In the Book of the Messengers, André Luiz meets someone in one of these spiritual colonies on his way to Earth, and this individual, that I forgot his name, tells André Luiz that he's never been to Nosso Lar. He didn't merit visit Nosso Lar yet. He was still working on himself. So spirits cannot go everywhere they want. They can go everywhere they can, according to their limitations on their evolutionary path. And also spirits that live around Earth, that have their incarnations on Earth, that are not evolved enough, they will stay around Earth. They don't leave the planet. They will stay in spiritual planes around Earth. Spirits more evolved can go to different planes of existence and different places in the universe, but most of us, we stay here. We come here, we incarnate, we go back to the spiritual world around Earth, and then we come back to a new incarnation around Earth again. Okay?
No, a silly question. Does our moon have not incarnated spirits, of course, but does the spirits live there?
There are spirits on the moon.
Oh,
Yes. I don't know if there are incarnated spirits on the moon. I never read anything about it.
yeah,
But when they say that all celestial bodies are inhabited,
celestial bodies, okay.
yeah, even the suns and the stars, we have to conclude that there are spirits in the moon. But what type of spirits, and we don't have this information.
Might be like a transitional.
There are planes of transition. There are places that they put spirits that need to be separated for their own protection. Some kind of a spiritual. I don't like the word prisons because I think it's a little bit heavy. But spiritual.
How about colonies
that are for spirits that are still struggling and that are taken care, isolated from the general spirit population that they used to live within, right? But we don't have much information on that. But again, it's a logical conclusion based on what we study, right? That everything is inhabited. Danny.
In the book, Voltaire,
Came back.
it says the translations came back.
Yeah, but it's not translated into English, but yes.
But it would be came back, or coming back, right? No,
I came back because
I came back.
it's him telling her.
Yeah,
back.
yeah. He describes a lot of his trips from one place to another. There is one part that stuck with me. He says he travels in group. Several times he was led by Bezerra de Menezes going to a lecture or to school, and he said that at some point they had to be aware of transportation from Earth, actually, like airplanes and stuff, but they were not inside a transportation vehicle. They were just volatilizing, as I understood.
Yes.
It's it's a little bit descriptive of what this question can bring us.
Yeah, but as far as I remember, he never leaves Earth. He's always around Earth. Yes.
Around Earth, yeah. He's always close to Earth, yeah.
Yeah, and but we know Bezerra de Menezes can go outside Earth because he actually was offered the opportunity and decided to stay here. But you see that he's taken by Bezerra. It's like André Luiz being taken by his mother to where she lives. And again, André Luiz's mother, she doesn't live in a different planet. She lives in a higher plane of existence on Earth. Right, it's just that we don't have many descriptions of which is these higher planes of existence, right? But yeah, there are spaces, there are places in the universe that more evolved spirits inhabit. So Bezerra de Menezes, for instance, maybe he may live outside Earth already. We don't know that. He comes to Earth all the time and he helps us here all the time, but we don't know. We don't have information of where he lives.
This book, I Came Back, is from the 1940s.
Yes, it's
He
discarnated in 1945 or 6, if I'm not mistaken, and right after, a couple of years later, he dictated the book to Francisco Xavier.
So it was one of the first books that Chico Xavier.
No, he had already started André Luiz collection. He had already, the books of Emmanuel. He started in 1930. His first book is from 1933, 32, 33. So he had probably like 10, 15 books already at that time, or even more. He actually describes that he went there to meet Chico Xavier, right? Brother Jacob, which was Frederico Figner when it was incarnated, right? It's the book that best describes the process of discarnation from a spirit that is discarnating, right? Because he was allowed to be semi-conscious during his discarnation, so he could describe it to us. It's a very interesting book. I don't know why it was, because it belongs to Fabi, so I don't know why it was never translated into English. But you know, we keep hoping eventually that it will be. Okay. We have 8 minutes. Okay. So let's start a couple more here.
Where do you want to start? Form and ubiquity of spirits?
Yes.
88. Do spirits have a fixed, limited, and unchanging form? For you, yes, but not. For us, yes, but for you, but not for you. You can imagine them as a flame, gleam, or ethereal spark. A. Is this flame or spark colored? To you, it would vary between dull gray and brilliant ruby, depending on the degree of the spirit's purity. Geniuses are usually represented with a flame or star on their foreheads, an allegorical allusion to the essential nature of spirits. The flame or star is on the head because it is the center of intelligence.
So Kardec is asking here, again, spirits. We're not talking about the spiritual body. If the spirits have a fixed, limited, and unchanging form, spirits, not the physical, the spiritual body or perispirit. And the answer from the spirits, yes. For us, yes, but not for you. You can imagine it as a flame, gleam, or ethereal spark. You can imagine any way you want, right? Because we don't have words to describe and we don't have terms of comparison. And then Kardec goes a little bit further. So do they have colors, right? This flame or spark. And they say, to you, because it's how we can understand, it's between a dull gray and a brilliant ruby, which means less evolved and more evolved, right? Less evolved spirits have no inner light. More evolved spirits have inner light, and that's why they say a brilliant ruby, depending on the degree of the spirit's purity. And then Kardec talks about genius being represented by a star on their foreheads, right? But again, it's trying to describe something that we don't have words to describe. So I think here is the spirits, they can see this other spirits, but they cannot describe what other spirits are in terms of the spirit, not the spiritual body. Okay.
Number 89. Do spirits require any time to travel through space? Yes, but their travel is as rapid as thought. Subsection A. Isn't thought the soul itself moving from one place to another? Wherever the thought is, the soul is with it, since it is the soul that thinks. Thought is an attribute.
Yes, so this is kind of complex here, right? What the spirits are telling here is that the spirits can travel as rapid as thought. So the spirit thinks and it's already there because it's the thought that counts. But we have to go a little bit further and understand that this is more evolved spirits after they have learned how to do that. So a spirit like Bezerra de Menezes think of a place and he's there. Since the soul is the soul that thinks, thought is an attribute. But a spirit, less evolved spirit, we see in the descriptions of the book by André Luiz, right? That walks, have to take transportation because it doesn't know how to travel by thought. It's the same thing as, can spirits talk to each other by thought? Yes. Can all spirits do that? No. You need to learn how to have a conversation to do thought, right? Like I almost likes to give the example, right? Can humans swim? Yes. Can all humans swim? No. There are a lot of humans who don't know how to swim. So can spirits travel through thought, rapidly travel through thought? Yes. Can all spirits do that? No, only evolved spirits. Okay? We're going to stop here, because then we come back next week. We have a lot more questions on this subject, and I want us to spend more time talking about the form and ubiquity of spirits. Okay? Any final questions, comments? No? So this coming Saturday, we have a lecture by Gustavo Silveira. It's a young spiritist and already very knowledgeable. He's going to talk about blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. He covers the moral religious aspect of spiritism, the gospel very well. It's really worth. So blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. He's going to expand on this theme. The United States Spirits Federation recently released a new course, Introduction to Mediumship, a study guide for beginners. You can see the classes and can enroll and see the classes. There are 4 first classes already available on the United States Spirits Federation YouTube page. Okay. This Sunday, which is the last Sunday of March, we are going to be studying the book Between Heaven and Earth, because we won't be able to do it on the first Sunday of April. So we are on chapters 25 and 26. Okay, I know it's I forgot the word. It's the weekend holiday, but we will be having our study on Sunday at 11 a.m. Okay. The book club is the last 2 chapters of Ill-Fated Diamonds, chapters 7 and 8 of the second part, right?
Yeah.
The
And
last.
then we start Paul and Stephen the following Wednesday.
So on the second Wednesday of April, we start Paul and Stephen. I really recommend, for those that haven't read or read and forgot or are planning to read, to participate, because it's one of the best spiritist books without a doubt. Okay. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly, John. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, Elmo. And Philip, thank you for reading for us this evening. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we are grateful to be together again for our study of the Spirits book, our chapter being chapter 1 of book 2 regarding spirits. Individual spirits are ethereal and immortal. We had a beginning and were created at some point. However, we may eventually understand how this process works. For now, we must accept on faith that it is true. Spirits are part of the intelligent principle. Physical bodies are part of the material principle. God continues to create and never ceases to create. Spirits exist everywhere, including planets. They may populate infinite space and in infinite numbers. Spirits are around us all the time, depending on their spiritual evolution and purity, as well as ours. Spirits can travel rapidly as thought, depending on their advancement. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all who are engaged in participation. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for suffering spirits. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, they may prosper, they may expand, and they may be protected night and day. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and of charity. And may all have a blessed Easter and Passover season. So be it.